Hey everyone, North Star Knife Reviews. Normally my videos tend to be about 5-6 minutes, short attention span kind of things. This video is probably going to be a little longer than that because I want to talk about a couple of things in addition to this knife. Most of you have probably heard by now that Ontario Knife Company was sold to Blue Ridge Knives. And they're closing their factory in Franklinville, New York. Now, what I want to do today is just take a little bit of a look at the history of Ontario, take a look at this knife, and then talk about what does the future hold for Ontario knives. My thoughts on it may be completely wrong. I have no idea. But let's talk just a little bit about the history of this company. Okay, as you can see from this box, which is actually a pretty nice box, Ontario Knives was founded in 1889. They're originally located in the village of Naples, New York, which is in Ontario County, which is where the name comes from, right? They sold knives by push cart around the countryside and started building up a reputation, needed to move to a bigger place, get with more power. So they bought an old sawmill in Cadiz, I think it's pronounced, C-A-D-I-Z, New York. And were there until 1902 when they needed to expand again. And so they moved to Franklinville, which is very close to Cadiz. And that is where they're still located today, in Franklinville, New York, in, I believe, the exact same factory. So they've been around for 134 years, and they've been in their current factory for 121 years. So quite the history, and it's really sad when a company like this closes. Honestly, the saddest thing is the workers who, hopefully will be able to find other positions, ways to make a living. Yeah, it's sad to lose a knife company, but those are the people who are really affected by it the most. So hopefully they can find something else to put a roof over their head and food on the table. But Old Hickory has been there for a long, long time. 1926, they started Ontario has been there a long time. 1926, they started producing the Old Hickory, which were very popular and, still are reasonably popular, I believe. But anyway, an old company, been around a long time, sad to lose them. Let's take a look at this knife, which I bought just a couple of days ago. And I bought a couple others too. There's the only ones come in yet. But, the closing, and I was like, well, shoot. I've got some Ontario knives. I've got some Old Hickories. But I thought, if I'm going to get a couple of U.S.-made Ontarios, I should do it now while I can. So I ordered this, and this is the SP-1. It's made in the U.S., in fact, you can see right there, USA. I also ordered the SP-5, and then I ordered a couple of Old Hickories. I may order, one or two others while I can. But let's take a look at this knife. Okay, and this is sort of outside my wheelhouse. I don't have any other combat knives, so this is something unique for me. So, not something that I am really familiar with that much. The specifics of combat knives, but I'm still going to take a look at it. So here we go. This knife I got on Amazon for $35, which made in the US knife this size for $35 is, I think, a pretty darn good price. They do still have some. That's the best price I've seen on them. Most places I've seen them that still have them are selling from $45 to $50. So if you want one, check out Amazon, or you can certainly go elsewhere too. But that's going to be probably the best price. And they did have some still as of this morning. So, let's take a look at the sheath first. The sheath is so-so. It's nylon. It's got a little plastic insert. You have the two tabs here. Let me get this in here. I'm getting hooked up on this. It's one of the reasons I don't like tabs. They hook you up sometimes. But you cover that or snap that. You can snap this, and I'm actually not going to do it because I want to take it right back out. But if I was carrying it, I probably would leave this unsnapped and just have this. But you more safe if you have them both, I guess. But the sheath is just sort of so-so, but it works. The knife itself is pretty good size. Let's see what we've got here for length. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, not quite 7-inch blade. And the blade is about 1 inch tall. A clip point, you've got a fuller on here, or blood groove if you prefer. Does not come particularly sharp, okay? Not particularly sharp, but that's something you could certainly take care of easily enough. This is 1075 carbon steel. They used to make these in 1095. They went to 1075 a few years ago. Not sure the exact date, but they went to 1075. Now, there are advantages and disadvantages to that. 1095 is going to hold an edge a little better. 1075 is going to be a little tougher. So it depends on what you want to do with it. But, Condor makes a lot of knives out of 1075. It's perfectly fine, basic carbon steel. You've got a 3/16 inch thick blade, nice and solid. Tang goes all the way through, full tang. The handle is Creighton. It's a rubberized plastic material. And the one thing that's kind of weird to me, at least for some of this advertised as a combat knife, is that these are also the rubberized, the Guards Are Rubberized, which seems like it wouldn't hold up that well in, combat. Now, these are not military knives. Okay, Ontario makes a bunch of military knives. These are sort of the civilian version of the military knives. But, it looks like it's sort of modeled after the stacked leather handles, like on a K-bar or something like that. Pretty comfortable in hand. I do like it. Big enough, you could, if you are doing a little chopping, you could, get back here. You've got this little grip here. That'll work for you. See, Ontario Knife USA. And again, this is made in New York. SP-1 Combat. What is the overall length of this thing? Let's see, we had 7 inches plus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so 12 inches overall. So a good size knife. And again, not the type of knife I normally buy, but it was a, get it now or never get it, or search for it on a secondary market. So given the price, I decided to go ahead and pull the trigger on it. I'd looked at this and a couple other of these combat knives before. I just never gotten around to it because it wasn't really the kind of knife I collected, but wanted to have it, before they were gone. So what happens now? What happens to Ontario knives? Well, personally, I'm assuming that some Ontario knives will still be produced. It's just which ones and where. Some of the folders, like the Rat 1, Rat 2, are already produced overseas in Taiwan. I would assume that at least in the near future, those are going to stay where they are and you'll still be able to get them. Maybe they'll keep them there long term. Maybe they'll move it to China. I don't know. But, they're popular knives, and I would think that those would be something they'd keep around. Obviously, well, at least to me, obviously, there are still going to be some Ontario knives. Otherwise, Blue Ridge would not have paid, $2.6 million for it. But which ones? I don't know if this will still be made. My guess is if knives like this are still made, these are going to move overseas. The old Hickory line, my guess would be that it will still be around in some form, but probably not as many styles. They'll probably get rid of some of the more specialized kind of knives, like the hop knife, the pig sticker, the cotton sampler, the skinner, things that probably aren't used in a home kitchen all that often. Maybe keep some of the basic knife, like, the 2 different sizes of paring knives, chef's knife, the butcher knife, the 8-inch slicer, maybe a boning fillet knife. But my guess is they cut the old Hickory line down. And those, I could actually see those continuing to be made in the US just by some other manufacturer because, they're a fairly simple knife, which is part of the charm, right? But they're 1095 steel with 2 pieces of hardwood and a couple of brass rivets. Not going to take a whole lot of retooling for a company like, say, Bear & Son or somebody like that, or Utica maybe, to start making them. So those I could see sticking around. What does the future hold? I don't know. I'm glad I picked this up just to have a US made, another US made Ontario. Like I say, I'm getting the SP-1 also. We'll take a look at that. Getting a couple of old hickories just to have a couple more. Who knows? Some of these may stick around. Some of these may even be made in the US. You know, when Smoky Mountain Knife Works bought Queen, they started making them overseas. Now have moved some production back to the US. On the other hand, Camillus, you know, they're all made in China now. Which way does Ontario go? I have no idea, but we will see. All I can say is if you want to get a US made Ontario or you want to get a US made Old Hickory, you want to be sure of it, go out now and do it rather than waiting, because otherwise the only place you might be able to get them is the secondary market. Again, so long, Ontario. Sad to see you go, at least in your current form, but you know, I suppose that is how business and that operates. Anyway, hope you guys have a good Friday. Hope you have a good weekend. Hope I didn't bore you and ramble on too much, but take it easy. I'll catch you next time.